Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's Quick Bites webinar from Just2easy. As you can see, my name is Paul Wright. I teach computing in 2 Hull primary schools, just north of the Humber, and I also work part-time for Just2easy as an education consultant. With me today on the chat line is Alistair Cameron, also from Just2easy. So if you have any questions, please direct them to Alistair, who will either answer them there and then or save them for the Q&A session at the end. So without further ado, let's have a look at today's agenda. Animation using JIT5 Animate. We will aim for 15 minutes, and this is the outline of the session. So if you're fairly new to J2 in J2 Launch, once you've logged on, you can access JIT5 by one of 2 ways, either from that menu at the top, which will remain static and will always be there, or the large yellow JIT5 tile. It probably won't be the 4th one in because I moved mine around, but it will be on your J2 launch page. And then once you have launched JIT5, you'll see it's got several modules. Here is the animate, the pink one. Okay, so that's how to get to J2 animate. Let's have a quick look at rules of thumb. I was lucky enough a few years ago to go on a course with someone who was a professional animator, worked for Aardman Animations, and he gave us some tips for teaching animation to children. The first one, there are no shortcuts. It is a patience thing, whether you're doing stop motion animation, as we're doing, or with other software with a webcam, that's what it is. Obviously, have your idea before you begin animating, otherwise you just don't get very far. He suggested that for older pupils, 6 to 8 frames a second is a good guide to aim for. Any less than that, and you don't get a particularly satisfactory result. And any more than that, it'll take forever. It probably won't finish. And move your characters little and often. We came up with the half a granny rule. I'll show you the granny animation later on in the session. But for the younger children, we decided that moving your granny half a granny at a time gave a perfectly acceptable result. But we'll have a look at how that is done later on. Okay, so this is the interface. When it starts up, we'll go live in a second. We have frames down here, and we can add them with this button. We can delete them from here, and this one will duplicate a frame, which is very handy if we're using speech bubbles, which we will do at some point. This is the scene. Okay, if you as a teacher or as a child wants to edit this, put in a palm tree or something, if you put it in here, then it will be across every frame, so you don't need to have it in. So that's the background scene. Okay, so without further ado, let us launch into JIT5. Here we go, over to animation. And fairly consistently across all the JIT programs, you start with some scenes that have been prepared for you. So we'll use one of those. I shall go, I think, to the park. So that's been done. And then you'll default to a set of clip art, which is appropriate to that scene. But there is nothing to stop you going and getting clip art from somewhere else. Okay, it just makes sense to do that. Just to highlight about if I wanted to draw my own tree, which will be a bad move because I'm not very good. If I draw it in down here, you can see that that will become part of that background. And let's just make it an apple tree. That tree will now become part of my scene. So it's an option for you to use if you want. Right, the clip art can be resized, larger and smaller, and flipped with these buttons here. Okay, so let's turn the bee round. All we need to do, the objective for this one is to get the bee to fly from one side of the screen to the other. So I'm going to click, very simple, just click, put it down, go into my next frame, And you will see here there's an outline of where the bee was. That's called onion skinning, and it is there to help you line up where you want to go next. So I'm going to go for about half a bee. I'm going to my next frame. I'll just go on for a few frames because any second now I'm going to run out of frames. So at this point I will need to put them in. Personally, I put a few in at a time. If you do go beyond the screen edge, you can use the arrow keys to move backwards and forwards. So we have Chromebooks at the school that I work at, and you don't get as much on the page. I've got quite a large screen here. So let's go back. I'll do a couple more bees. At any one time, we can check on progress by clicking the play button. So it's moving fairly smoothly now. I can change the speed down here. Now you don't want to see me complete this animation all the way, but I will show you what happens now if you don't move your bee in short movements. I'm just going to take the shortcut. There we go. As you can see, looking quite smooth to start with, and then all of a sudden we just jump. So that highlights the need to keep your movements little and often rather than big jumps like that. Okay, and we can title it here if we want to. We don't have to. Children can click here and record what they've done or a commentary on their work. And like a lot of work, click on the button here. It will save to their own personal files area. And when they click on the open folder button here, here we see all their previous animations. All we'll see here is animations because we are using the animate. So JIT5 segregates your work. Okay, so that's fine. What we can do now is we're going to start a new one, but this time how to add other backgrounds in other than the ones that come here. You click on pictures. All these are ones that I have been using over the past few months and years. Right, so they're available in my files area, but I can click on the internet, and I've done this with quite young children, year 1s and 2s. So let's just do a search for forest, press enter, and here we go. So I should say at this point that all the images are copyright cleared and have been filtered, so you shouldn't bump into anything inappropriate. So there we are, quick way of getting a custom background in, and you can do the same with over here, come across the web search. I think a deer might look quite good there. And it will give you photographs and the clip art. So for this one, I'm just going to choose the clip art. Turn it round, and we are back again. So the process, as we did before, frame at a time. And there we go. You again don't need to see me finish that. All right, so that's how to get your custom backgrounds and images in. Another one that I'm just going to show you quickly is that as well as searching for images on the web, here's an example. I don't need to save that. A few years ago, we took the entire school to a nearby village because the Tour de Yorkshire cycle race was coming through. So I took my camera, took some photographs, and you can see I've uploaded one of those, shared that picture with the children, and then they've just done a simple little animation of someone coming through on a bicycle. So, you know, you can take your own pictures and put them as a background to the animation. Okay, so let's just stop that one for a second. And just go press on. So let's have a look at some examples, and we'll also come back to the fact that you can use speech bubbles. Pardon me, went for a minute. So here is the park birthday party, and here is the granny of half a granny fame. And you can see here, when she gets there, the crowd, the happy birthday, all these were clip arts searched for. So if I just stop this and come in and show you what's happened. So you can see here that Granny has been moved, well, probably a bit more than half, but. And then we get to this point, we've used this button here, the duplicate or clone button, because otherwise the happy birthday message would only be on screen fleetingly. So you can see here, we've got the children have put 4 or 5 frames identical, so that message stays on screen. Okay, so let's have a look at another. Here's a fireworks display done by some year 3 pupils, and in this one they have obviously gone and found the rocket clip art. This is one of the backgrounds from JIT5, but what they've done here is they've used the painting tools here to animate, draw their own firework exploding. So let's have a look at that. Okay, get the idea, feel for that one. Again, we could change the speed from down here. And it's on a loop at the moment. If I click there, I just run it once and it would stop. So, but I will put it back on its loop. And you can see here, we just go along to the frames where there is their first explosion frame, and then onto the next one where it just gets a bit bigger and a bit wider, sort of mimicking the behavior of a firework, and then smaller, until we end up with blank screen. Okay, so I hope that's given you some idea of how we can perhaps weave some cross-curricular work in. Here is a volcano, again a year 3 example. I just click on start. Okay, so obviously an obvious link with geography, which is when that was done last year. Okay, and we have one more example to have a look at. So for older pupils, you can extend slightly by you getting the effective perspective. So let's just have a look at this. If I just speed it up slightly, the helicopter coming in and getting a bit nearer, a bit bigger as it gets nearer. Okay, and all I did there was, let's just quickly use a Halloween bat to demonstrate what I did. Let's come back to the start. So all I would do is I put the bat down, go to the next slide, make the bat slightly bigger, the next frame slightly bigger. I'll just do a couple more for effect. See, I'm just having this coming straight at me, so looking, not moving across the screen. So I say each one, I think with the helicopter I did a couple of frames at each size, but this will serve for the demonstration purposes. And let's just click that now and play. Okay, so let's just pause that. So obviously for all these examples, I've only used one animal or piece of clip art each time. You can make these scenes bigger and better by putting extra characters in and maybe using the speech bubbles so they have a conversation with them. There's the speech bubble. So if I just show you how it works, you click on speech bubbles, choose the one that you want, and then you write there. And you should drag it onto the page. That is how you would use a speech bubble. And then lastly, once we've saved this one again, so obviously we can open this in J2E and edit it. But when it is finished, one nice feature that we can do is if I click on this GIF button here, if I save it as a GIF, then as well as saving it as a JIT5, if I click on my files, we can see there it is. And if I click on it now, it works as a standalone file. No JIT5 needed to play that. So that file could be taken, put on another piece of work, a website, a blog, or just emailed to somebody. Right, so that's quite a nice feature for, I would suggest, the older pupils. Okay, so I'm just going, this webinar will be published fairly shortly to this web address, just2easy.com news. Just click on Quick Bites. Here are the ones that have already been recorded and published. And here are the last two that we are going to be doing before Christmas. Right, so all it remains for me to do now is just to ask Alistair if there have been any questions. And it would appear not. So all that remains for me to do is to thank you very much for your time today, and hope to see some of you again, and enjoy your evening. So thanks once again.